Hi everyone. I'm going to be talking about in this video the way that you develop an argument and support it from evidence. The key here is what you see in this drawing here. This pyramid will explain to you how exactly I want you to go about putting all of this together. Notice where it begins. It begins all the way here at the bottom with your first step, and it works up the pyramid. This is important because as you develop your thesis, your claim, and your reasons, it's important to understand the distinction between how you're supposed to build this and the way that you might think you're supposed to build this. A lot of you like to build your thesis first and then find evidence. This is very, very challenging. You might have an idea, and then what you're trying to do is find evidence that goes into that, versus starting with evidence and then letting your ideas get built from there. So I want you to try this process because it will make it a lot easier for you to build a thesis. It might be hard at first, but it's very important. The first thing you want to do is always look at what question are you trying to answer, because that's what you need to answer. So it's important for you to know what your question is and to understand all the components. The second piece is finding your evidence. Sometimes it's given to you. Other times you have to find it. And other times it's a combination of the two. In the Unit 2 EUA, you're going to need to do both. You're going to have evidence and you're going to need to find some. You then need to sort your evidence into groups or categories, usually about 2 to 4. Step 4, what do each of these categories tell you about the answer to your question? Then those categories become reasons, your lines of argument that you're making to support your claim. Then at the end, I know it's hard to read, so I'll read it for you. What do all of your reasons tell you about the answer to the question? And that's your claim, sort of your answer to the question. So together, your claim and your reasons make up your thesis. Let's walk through an example together. Here's my question. What negative societal aspects exist? And to what extent are they harmful to a civilization's development? So this is a two-part question. I have to first acknowledge what negative societal aspects there are, and then talk about to what extent that they're harmful. To what extent can be a challenging question. So be thinking about, is it very harmful, somewhat harmful? And you can either specifically identify that in your claim, or you can sort of generally state it and then go into it more specifically within your reasons and then into your essay that you write. Here is the rubric that you are going to be graded on for doing this process. That you've included a claim that explicitly responds to the prompt. You have 2 to 4 reasons. 2 to 4 is based on how many groups you create from the evidence. They all support your claim and they're all distinct. They address all major components, meaning that they address all parts. It's a logical thesis, it makes sense, it is clear, and it's an accurate understanding of what we're doing in this course. And remember, the thesis is your claim and your reasons. So let's start down here with the evidence. Here, I have found all this evidence. Okay, so I went out and I gathered different pieces of evidence that relate to societal aspects. I've cited where I've gotten them from. Some of them are statistics, some of them are just pieces of information, etc., etc. So you can scroll down Yahoo, Huffington Post, different aspects of this as I look through this. Feel free to pause and take a look at some of this evidence so you understand how I'm going about doing this. So the next piece is that now I have all these pieces of evidence. I now need to group it. The easiest way to group things is typically by pegs, political, economic, geographic, and social systems, and how they relate to those ideas. Sometimes it can be either in a positive or negative. Sometimes it can be in just a topic. Whatever and however you want to group it is entirely up to you. But that next step is step 3 of, now that I have my evidence, is how do I group my evidence into categories is very key. How did I do it? I did it by pegs. So here I have color coordinated all of it, and the all means it relates to all 4 of my pegs. And here you can see I've color coordinated all of it. Since the question is specifically focusing on societal aspects, you would definitely be able to see that a lot of this is going to be related to social, as indicated by the pink color, which makes sense. Your evidence might have more of a balance depending on the question, but this is how mine comes out. So now that I've grouped it, I need to decide and look and sort it out and figure out what are those aspects telling me. What are these pieces of evidence telling me about what kind of negative societal aspects there are, and to what extent are they harmful to society? So I would look at all the pink ones and ask those questions to myself. The red ones, same thing. Blue, the burgundy, the green, etc. After all of this, I've decided that I have come up with 2 reasons. You need to make 2 to 4. So either 2, 3, or 4, your choice. Here are the 2 that I've created. The various hate crimes and negative actions taken against gender groups divide the country and provide for the greater spread of violence amongst American residents. So here, I've done a great job of identifying what's the negative aspect, the hate crimes and negative actions against gender groups. As you can see in the evidence, LGBTQ, women, etc. are all part of gender groups. So I've sort of taken my different specific evidence and I've broadened it up just slightly. Not too much, but slightly. And then I go into explaining to what extent is that harmful to a civilization or a society, because it divides the country and provides for the greater spread of violence. So the reason is a bit broad, but still specific enough that you can understand what I'm going to be talking about. Again, your reasons are sort of your because or your support for the answer to the question. My second one happens to start very similarly. It doesn't have to, but it can. The various hate crimes and negative actions taken against religious minorities and refugees speaks to the pervasive religious undertones of our society that divide us as Americans. So here, this is talking about the religiosity ideologies behind individuals that divide us. So saying that religion is a divisive piece, not something that unifies us. And that is based on my evidence. Did I have these ideas beforehand? I may have. But I didn't necessarily have to. I let the evidence tell me what I should be thinking here. Again, sometimes you might have your own thinking, but it's important for you to stop and allow the evidence to first help develop your thinking before you try and find evidence to fit into what you think. It can be very challenging to do that, as I said before. Now, I've got my 2 reasons. Again, I could have had a third, I could have had a fourth. In this case, I didn't need it. Now, based on these 2, what sort of theme am I seeing here? Well, I see hate crimes and negative actions, so that's part of the first part of the question, but really I want to be answering to what extent. So I see this idea of divide, and I see this idea of divide here. So that seems to me to be the common theme between the 2. So when I go to create my claim, meaning my answer to the question, again, this question, I can say the social issues, so I've summarized this, in America present negatively within society, causing greater divide amongst the American people. A little broader, but still not too broad that I have no idea where you're going to go. So then the claim is the last thing that I develop, and collectively the claim and the reasons make up my thesis. This is how I want you to go about in developing your theses when it's time for you to do this on your own for U2 EUA. Please see the interactive guide if you have any further questions. Please come talk to me and use this video as a helpful guide in developing your thesis. Take care.